Davis Jaspers. How long have you
VitaLife.
run VitaLife?
We started, this summer will be 7 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for 2014. I think it was June. I have to always look it up. But yeah,
We started our business the exact same time.
exact same time. Nice.
I was May of 2014.
Nice. Was that your first company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not like you, who's
I had my fair share of mistakes. So and I wouldn't even necessarily mistakes. I had my fair share of learning experiences. I was selling suits at the time. I was the general manager of a suit store, and I wanted to hire a rock star team, but I inherited a staff, and I wanted to fire all but one of them. I didn't have the ability to let them go. I had a district manager, and you just couldn't fire people. The people were not showing up to work. They were poor performing. I had an employee that would show up that smelled like alcohol, and we had a tailor that was just horrible and reeked of cigarette smoke. And, I wanted to just rebuild the entire team, but I couldn't because of politics. I couldn't let go of this person because of their gender or their age or their race or their religion. And it was like, well, then everybody becomes non-fireable. I have nothing against these people for any of those reasons. It's the reasons that you let people go. So it became this, you have to find 3 strikes and document all of this stuff.
The paper trail
game. Yeah. And then that employee knows what's going on. You know what's going on. And so for that entire time, it's just this toxic work environment that they hate, you hate, everybody hates. The clients hate it. So I knew at that point in time that I couldn't do that. I couldn't play the games. I needed to be able to make decisions based upon what I felt was best. And same thing, I had a guy that was really great and I wanted to give him a raise. And the person who had been there longer was making significantly more than this guy and was doing a horrible job. I was working 7 days a week because people weren't showing up to work. I was like, I can't do this, but I didn't know how to start a business. I had no idea. I was a Bible major, so I could tell you how to read the Bible and understand that. I didn't know how to put the pieces together. With most entrepreneurs, there's some event that happens that kind of catapults them into their business, and normally it's not anything that's planned. Now sometimes it is. Fearlessness to start a business, it was, well, I'm going to succeed because I'm just going to outwork everyone else, and I know that I may fail 100 times or 1,000 times, but I always get up. So I went snowboarding about a month ago out in Colorado, and I was snowboarding with these people who are really good. I'm an amateur, very much an amateur, but these people were really good. And I'm going over pretty small jumps, but man, I went over a jump and I landed and I just, hit the ground. I mean, it was one of those hit the ground where your goggles come off and like it was really hit the ground. I was like, oh, that hurt. And so, I got up, I was in the valley, and then there's another jump. So I got up, and I crashed and I basically crashed all the way down and then up to the next one. So I was able to get up.
Sliding on your face? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sliding. So I was able to get up and get to the top of the next one. And then I was just like, well, there's one more jump in this, in this set of 3. So I went up and, took another jump. Wham! Fell again. So bad. And then it was rails after that. And then I got up and, brushed myself off. And then I ended up doing a couple rails and without falling. And then when I came back, because then everybody kind of stands at the top of the hill waiting to go, I came back to the top. They're like, man, most people, when they case that hard, they take a break and they just go down and ride the lift back up so they can kind of recuperate. You just get up and wham, you did it again. So, snowboarding is the same thing. You're gonna fall, and honestly, the more you fall, the more you learn, and the more you fail, the more you learn. Because if you're never falling and if you're never failing, you're never growing. Growth has to hurt, and if it doesn't hurt, then it's really not happening.
You know what I think? As far as growth and feeling that pain from failing, a lot of times what I found, and I'm curious if you've come across the same thing, a lot of times what I found is that the pain caused by failing is a lot of times a lot less painful than the pain or the harm caused by being afraid of the potential pain and avoiding it.
Absolutely.
You do yourself it's a lot more painful to not experience or reap the benefits of failing but getting it right potentially versus failing and realizing that that wasn't the greatest. That was not an optimal thing to happen, but at least I was able to learn from it, and to be honest, it wasn't that bad. It could have been worse.
And that goes, the pain of regret is um, way more toxic to the human spirit than the pain of failing. With VitaLife, we are a health and wellness company, and people find it painful and hard to do our program because we are changing their lifestyle. We are literally trying to change the way they approach life. We are trying to get them to cook meals at home, which is so counterculture. We are trying to get them to cook whole, healthy meals when that's not their lifestyle, because they've come to us with a problem, and it's their lifestyle that has created the problem 9 times out of 10. And I love the Einstein quote, but you can't solve your problems at the same level of thinking you had when you created them. And so the pain of learning a new lifestyle, there's always pain. The pain that you experience changing is always easier than the pain that you're going to experience by not changing. When you look at COVID, I know that one of the things that a lot of business owners are wondering and struggling with, and things that we both have struggled with, is how to adopt or adapt your business to the changing environments with COVID and the regulations and all of those things, and people being scared, businesses cutting back on what they're willing to spend, people going out of business, and in the pain of not adapting to the changes that are happening in our world is way more painful when 6 months from now you go out of business because you didn't change. March of 2020, when everything started to shut down. I was actually in California, and I was at a big convention, and the whole convention canceled. The largest natural health expo in the world. It happens in California, in LA, once a year. And it's, hundreds of thousands of people come to this thing, and everybody was there, and they canceled. And when I came back and kind of, started to realize a little bit more what was happening, come fast forward mid-April, it was like, well, this thing's going to be here a while. I met with my leadership team, and I said, let's, typically when we have problems in life, it's a lot of times because we're asking ourselves bad questions. Because the way human psychology works is when I ask myself a bad question, my brain will immediately answer it. So when I look at people and when I help people who struggle with their weight, a lot of times they come in and they're like, I've tried everything. I don't know why I always fail on a diet, or why do I always cheat? Why do I always fail on my diet? And then immediately what ends up happening is their brain starts bringing back to them all of the reasons. Well, yeah, I always fail on my diet because I can't deal with the cravings. I always fail on my diet because, that's my personality. I self-sabotage. I always fail on my diet because I can't, cook at home. And so immediately you just beat yourself up because you've asked yourself a bad question. So what we encourage our clients to do is ask themselves a better question. Rather than why do I fail, ask yourself, what can I do right now to live a healthy life? And immediately your brain starts making these connections, like, oh, well, I could go for a walk. I could eat an apple. I could, immediately I already know the answers, but I'm not asking the right question. So when I was evaluating and just thinking through, how are we going to respond to COVID? I wanted to make sure that I thought through and asked myself a great question. So it wasn't the question of how can we survive COVID. Some businesses, and even friends of mine that are in business, they immediately laid off all their employees. It's like, oh, COVID, this is going to be horrible. We have to survive. And so when you ask yourself, how can we survive? Well, we have to save money. What's our biggest expense? It's employees. Let's get rid of our employees. I didn't want to ask myself that question. What I asked myself is, how can we thrive during the COVID environment? How can we have the best year we've ever had as a company during the COVID environment? And by asking that question, again, the leadership team came together, we rallied together. We put up a website in a day for shopping online, which we wanted to do for like 2 years, but it just wasn't a priority. Well, now all of a sudden it's a priority, and we put that up in a day. We took pictures of all the products and got it up there, and we did all this stuff, and we set in motion what became then our best year so far with VitaLife. And that's just because we asked ourselves the right question. And it has nothing to do with ability, or even in this instance, work ethic. It's just, again, asking the right question.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, when the lockdown order got implemented, and I know it was a Friday in March. It was the 13th. It was Friday the 13th.
A great day.
Friday the 13th in March. and we've coined it Black Friday internally in our office because it was the day that is a day of uncertainty. No one knew what was going to happen across the board. So I'm curious, what were the thoughts that went through your head initially when you found out that things were going to be shutting down for an indefinite amount of time? I mean, what were some of the thoughts that you were having at that point?
Excitement and fear are the same emotions. They're the same physiological signs. So we have the Olympics coming up. A lot of times when somebody wins a gold medal and the interviewer comes up and they put the microphone in their face and they're like, hey, were you nervous before you did, this event? And the athlete almost always says, no, they weren't afraid or they weren't nervous. They were excited. An athlete has learned to condition themselves for that jittery, anxious feeling to be excitement, because it's the same physiological signs. You have the same, maybe sweaty, you get a little bit sweaty, you pace a little bit, your palms sweat, there's that nervous energy, right? But that's the same thing when we're afraid. It's the same nervous energy. It's the same thing when we're nervous. And it's the same thing when we're excited. So being able to channel and control that emotion and understand and play it to what is better, because fear never helps anybody do anything. So when this happened, rather than being afraid, honestly, I was excited because it gave me a new set of challenges. And you'll know, being an entrepreneur, it's about overcoming these challenges that brings some of the excitement to the job. And it's not saying that we didn't have a whole bunch of challenges already, as any business owner would, but it was like a new set of challenges. Like, how can we thrive? And when we met as a team, I committed to them at that point in time, hey, I'm not cutting anybody's hours. We're actually going to try to implement a commission structure so everybody could possibly get paid more. We are going to thrive. And I said, this is what I'm committed to having happen in 2020. Now, I didn't have mid-April, I didn't have all of the pieces figured out. How am I going to do this? But I knew that I could, because I have the ability to figure it out. Putting myself out there was actually a commitment device. 90% of what I do for weight loss is psychology. Everybody knows that a donut is bad for you and that lettuce is healthy for you, to use some easy examples, but everybody chooses the donut over the lettuce, right? So how do we get people to choose the lettuce over the donut? 9 times out of 10 at least, right? Not saying that you never have a donut, but we're gonna.
And I would make an argument that the donut has a psychological effect that is very good for you.
It does, yes. In moderation, right? Sure. In moderation, just like anything. Everything's moderation. But from a psychological perspective, a commitment device is anything that I do that makes a good decision easy or a bad decision hard. So, if you struggle waking up in the morning, putting your alarm clock under your bed is a great way to make a bad decision, going back to sleep, hard, because you have to get out of bed and crawl under it and get the alarm clock. Another, on the positive side, if I wanted to make sure that I got up in the morning, if I had my clothes laid out. So as soon as I hit that alarm and turn it off, my clothes are right there. It makes it easy for me to step into my clothes and then either go work out or go start my day, whatever, right? Those are commitment devices. So for me to stand up in front of my employees, I am telling all of them, this is what I'm going to do. And that's accountability. Making, the 20-some people in that room understand that they have the security to know that their job is going to be there because they have a leader who's committed to making sure that happens. It makes everybody, first of all, work harder, makes everybody feel like a team. It also makes them feel like, we as the management side of the company, we have their backs. The first thing that we thought of is not, let's let the employees go so we can make sure that we're staying around. It was, how can we inspire everyone to perform at the next level? And people will perform at that level when they know that there's that security and that they know that their leader is willing to put in the work to make sure that we all as a collective group are able to succeed. So, the COVID challenge, it is still challenging, but it's a fun challenge. And now we have a new set of challenges.
In your business, being a weight loss company, I would imagine that a lot of what you do relies on in-person communication and consultation. So when COVID happened and there's this information and misinformation out there, how have you found that is this something that worries you? or worried you at one point in time, or maybe it still does, but how has it affected your business and the mindsets of your clients?
So there's about 50% of the population that is, masks are the savior, COVID is killing us all. Then there's about 50% of the population that think masks are a joke, and they think the whole thing is crap and they're not going to wear a mask. And I would say our clients are 50-50 also. We have 50% of our clients that are like, masks and social distancing and all of that. And then we have 50% of our clients that could care less. When I'm looking at, okay, how do we navigate that as a company? All of our employees wear masks, and our staff is split. Some of them are that, man, we've got to wear masks, and some of them are like, man, I could care less. But the people who could care less typically, again, are going to be willing to wear a mask to make everybody else feel comfortable. So that's what we've implemented here. And, we are abiding by all of the state regulations. So currently in the state of Illinois, you have to have a mask on to be in a building. You have to have 25% capacity, and we're following all of those. We only have 3 chairs in our waiting room, and they're all at least 6 feet apart. We used to serve coffee in our rooms and water and stuff. We stopped all that because of COVID. We're even taking people's temperatures at the door, just to make sure that we're not introducing the disease the disease here. So we're doing the right steps. We're disinfecting the rooms after people are there, but we're not stopping the in-person meetings. We are able to support people from home that don't want to come in.
Okay.
And so we invested several $1,000s in buying equipment that we actually ship to people's homes so they can continue to do their bioscans on our program from the comfort of their home if they're afraid to be out. And there are some people that shouldn't be out. If they have some of those comorbidities, they shouldn't be out. Like, it makes sense for them to stay home. And there are several of our clients that have some of those things where we've encouraged them. You have autoimmune disease, you have a heart problem, you have this and this, you should stay home. We'll support you from home. We'll ship you your product. We'll ship you the equipment, and you stay home. But for the younger person that's healthy and they want to come in and do their thing, great.
Okay. So I applaud you for just being able to have the intentionality and the creativeness to come up with these ways of still remaining and keeping the continuity in your business, but also being able to provide the same level of service. Now, these are all great things for your clients, but I'm curious, how do you, being the owner of a 20 plus person weight loss company that relies on in-person meetings as the core method for creating your value with your clients, how do you keep yourself in a positive state of mind, and how do you self-regulate?
I have about 2, maybe 3 bad days a year, and they're more like bad moments. Part of that is I've always been a naturally very positive thinking person. Always the glass is half full, not the glass is half empty. That's always been my approach to life. So I have bad moments, and I would say that my bad moments may last a couple hours, but I have been called to reverse the obesity epidemic in America. Like, that is my mission. And there can be a whole lot of things that try to derail that mission, but nothing keeps me from that focus. And so, however, the problems that come, they're not necessarily problems as much as another challenge. So it's the next challenge, it's the next thing to overcome. And there's certain things that I know trigger me that can put me into those couple hours of having a bad day, or if you want to call it depression or feeling overwhelmed. There's certain triggers that I know that set me off, and I avoid those things, and I delegate other people to deal with stuff like that. So one of my triggers is anybody that has a negative experience with our company. That's a trigger for me. I don't want anybody to have a negative experience with us. And so we'll have problems. Employees will make mistakes, things happen. I have empowered my managers to make the best decisions in those situations. But sometimes the person doesn't like the decision that's made. So we may bring that person back to the same level, right?
So, as far as the mindset involved in being successful or making good decisions in anything in life, what do you think you would give or offer as advice to our viewers who maybe have been struggling personally or maybe even professionally? Maybe they're an entrepreneur who was running a successful company and their profits have been affected by COVID. Or maybe they're doing well, but they're struggling on the personal side and their personal relationships have taken a toll, have taken a dive because of the fact that COVID has created this hostility and volatility in their life. What advice would you give to people as far as how they can leverage their own mind to create a more positive outcome for them?
So, the what I do and what I spend most of my time doing is I spend so much time on working on myself. That's developing myself spiritually, developing myself physically, developing myself mentally, meditating, being a solid rock, because you have to be the person who is your own positive energy source. You are there isn't anybody that comes to pump me up, but I'm constantly pumping up the staff and everybody that's around me, and I have to be that person. So the things that I have to do to be the VitaLife founder looks different than the person who shows up and works 9 to 5. So my biggest number one piece of advice for anyone is spend more time on developing yourself than you do at your job. And if you'll do that, you will become way more valuable to the marketplace, which is how you make more money. Somebody will pay someone $1 million an hour if they're worth it. Right? So we look at like Jeff Bezos, he makes $8 million an hour. But we look at that and we think, oh man, that's ridiculous. He makes so much money. However, look at the value he's created in the marketplace. When I look at the value that he's created in the marketplace, I say, okay, well, it makes sense for him to make $8 million an hour because that's the value he's created. So the way you make more money in life is you become more valuable. How do you become more valuable? You got to learn. You got to become a better version of yourself. And there's a true story, and it's about a guy. His name is Ben Coleman. Picture yourself. You're at a high school cross country meet, and it's a little bit cold. It's early in the morning. It's like 7 in the morning. There's still dew on the grass, and you're at this cross country meet. It's a 5K race, right? And the gun goes off, and here's all these high schoolers. They all take off, and they're all running. And there's all this dust from the start of the race, and they all take off. And you notice very quickly there's a guy that's way behind the race already. I mean, the race just started. Everybody's way up there. The race hasn't developed enough to have everybody spread out. And this kid is way back there, and you look at him, and you're really watching him, and you think, what's this kid's gait? The way he's running is weird. It doesn't look right. Something's wrong with this kid. And you're watching him, and I mean, all of a sudden he just falls down. You're like, oh my goodness, like what is this kid doing? Why is he on the cross country team? This doesn't make any sense. He falls down, and I mean, man, his arms don't work right, so he doesn't even catch himself well, and he just like smacks his face, and then he's able to pull himself up, and you can see some blood coming down from his head, and he gets up and he runs a little bit more, and he seems to make it for a little bit, and then he falls again. He puts a big old gouge on his leg, and you can see the blood coming down his leg, and his jersey's all dirty and everything. And you talk to a parent that's standing next to you, like, is everybody else, seeing this kid that doesn't seem to be in the right place? And you just ask, hey, what's going on? And the parent says, well, that's Ben. And see here, Ben has cerebral palsy, and it's a degenerative disease, and he just gets worse and worse, throughout his life until he dies from it. But he wanted to be a part of the team, and his goal today is this is a 5K. Most of the races are going to finish in under 20 minutes, maybe 25 at the most. Ben, his goal today is to finish under 40 minutes, because that's going to be his best, his personal best, his PR. And so you just watch as Ben, continues to fall, and the longer he's doing it, his muscles are seizing up. He's got this disability. He's mentally all there, but his body, just isn't. And what's really interesting is, the racers all finish their race with, like I said, under 20 minutes. But what's really interesting, and a lot of people think, this story is about the person like me who just falls down and gets back up and falls down and fails and fails and fails and gets back up and gets back up. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is when everybody finishes their race and they're racing against each other. And when you race against each other and you're competing, which there's nothing wrong with competition, but when you're out there to beat everybody, everybody else is out there to beat you. So when we look at our business, if we're out to be just to beat everybody, if that's our mentality, then we're going to do some things that aren't necessarily great because we're going to beat the other person, right? I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not the approach that I have to life or with my business. When you are that type of person, then everybody's going to try to beat you, right? But when all the other racers finish their race, what they do is then the racers that are on his team, and even some of the other racers, they run and catch up with Ben, because this is a big loop, right? So they run and catch up with Ben, and one of the most amazing things happens. They all run with Ben, and as Ben falls down, I always get choked up. His team is there, picking him up and keeping him going. And in this particular race, Ben, he beats his personal best on that 5K because he's got his team there, and Ben is out there knowing that not only will he never win a race, he will never beat anyone else at the race. He will never not get last place, and he knows that when he gets to that starting line every time. But when you go out to be a better version of yourself, everybody else is there to cheer you on. And when I talk to people who are I'm gonna be number one, and I'm gonna beat all the other companies, and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, great, go for it. Be that version of you, but I'm not attracted to that, and most people aren't either. Most people are not attracted to the person who wants to just beat everybody else. But if somebody is that Ben Coleman, that person that's like, hey, you know what? I may not be in VitaLife. We may not be the best weight loss company ever, but every single day we're going to come and we're going to become a better version of ourselves. And that's what we want for our clients. Our clients may not have the most successful success stories of every weight loss person ever, but every day they're going to become a better version of themselves. And by becoming a better version of themselves, it's not even about how much weight they lose. It's about who they become in the process of losing that weight, which is more powerful than any weight loss you could ever experience. And so when I look at people who struggle, which we all struggle from time to time, when I look at and talk to people who struggle, my advice to them is go out every day and become a little bit better version of yourself. And by you becoming a little bit better version of yourself, everyone around you is going to cheer you on so you can do what you want to do with life.
Wow, that's a powerful story.
His story has inspired millions of people to be better versions of themselves. And so, you look at like the human spirit and what you can accomplish if you have that drive and that ability just to go out and be a better version of yourself. And the more you do that, the more you flex the muscle, the more you can handle in life, mm-hmm. and the more turmoil doesn't affect you. You almost, it's like the eagle who during the storm he can fly high enough where the storm is underneath him or her, whatever the case may be. The storm is underneath the eagle because the eagle has figured out a way to overcome the storm, not by fighting it, but by being above it. And so there's just some things that you can understand and process, and then just be able to be above that. Man, when we started VitaLife, one of the third month of our business, we started on a Hail Mary pass. My dad pulled all of his retirement, which my dad's a pastor. He had $40,000 in a retirement account, pulled it out, paid all the taxes and fees on that money, and that's the money we had to start VitaLife. I was here painting painting the building for the first time so we could save money, and between me and my mom and my dad, we painted the entire place. and it took us forever. And I'm not a good painter. My dad's even worse. My mom's pretty good. But we painted the entire place because we were trying to save money. We opened up. We had maybe $10,000 left in our checking account, and we spent like $2,000 on an ad, and just hoped that the phone would ring. The phone rang. We had people come in. We were trying to pay our bills, and everything else was happening at just and we had two people buy a program. I was so excited, and then the next day they wanted to return the program. And that was one of the hardest points that I've had at VitaLife. I've had two really hard points. That was one of them. And we had, at that point in time, we were at, like, I had racked up on my personal credit cards about $20,000 in credit card debt. I mean, I wasn't paying myself. I was living with my parents in their basement. Just everything I could do to cut expenses. I was driving Uber at the time, so I would work all day and then drive Uber at night. I'd drive into the city with my Ford Explorer and drive Uber to just get money so I could, keep things going, and pray that my vehicle didn't break down because I wouldn't have enough money to fix it up. And, doing all these things and then having that return. It's just like, we had at that point in time, maybe, after the return, we had like $1,500 in our checking account.
Wow.
And it was just like, $1,500 in checking account. My credit was not good, so I didn't have one credit card that was maxed out. I had like 5 that had like $3,000 limits, or $5,000 limits. All of them had maxed out. It was just like, how am I gonna, it was just trying to juggle, like, okay, let me pay this one, and try. Oh, I got an offer for a transfer with a 0 APR for a year. Transfer. How much can I transfer into that one? So it was this whole game. But then the next month, it just started happening, and the clients started coming in, and so that was a journey. So we then from there, was able to kind of pay off our debt and start to get things rolling. And then about 3 years ago, we had steady growth for that time frame, and then year 3 into year 4 of our business, we had a really bad year, and I wasn't managing our finances well, and we came to the end of the year, and there was just like same thing was happening. We had just like, we were running the same type of advertising and everything just stopped. We were signing up, like, getting 40 new people every month, and it's died. Like, and our money ran out so fast. It ran out in like a month and a half, and the same thing happened again. It's like all these credit cards again, and I, this entire time, I was paying myself between $20,000 and $30,000 a year, like just enough to live on. And I lived with my parents for several years getting this business started, and so I had just gotten into a position where I could buy a home, and so I had just purchased a home, and was making the payments on that, but making very little. My ex was working too, and some of that money was useful for paying our bills. And then I just remember being so frustrated one night when I was just trying to figure out finances and what we were going to do. I had no idea what we were going to do because we had to change how we were advertising. It wasn't working, and we weren't bringing in new clients. And I had basically sat there and predicted how long again we would have until the money ran out. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I've been doing this for 3.5, 4 years now, and I've never been able to take what a normal person's salary full-time job is. Like, I could be a manager at McDonald's, and I would be making more money than I am now, and I would be working less. I would be making way more per hour than I am now. And I just remember being so frustrated, and I remember just going outside and walking around my house and just continually thinking to myself, I am working so hard for so little, and I'm so tired. At that point in time, Windy City Live had reached out about doing a segment with VitaLife, and because we had some extreme success, and the fact that it was a local start and everything, we had, when I say extreme success, not monetary, but like our clients. We had seen, people lose 60 pounds in 40 days. We had seen just some really amazing things, and the fact that I was the creator of this amazing program. They wanted to talk about that and follow one of our clients. They actually ended up following 2 of our clients through their weight loss journey. And I was like, well, this is a great opportunity. Yeah, let's do it. And that was that very next month, and that was March of, I don't know, 2017, I think. And everything went wrong that day. Our software crashed. We use a cloud-based software for all of our scheduling, all of our credit card payments. And I'm driving to the TV station, and I get a call from my manager at the time, and he said, "Hey, our software's down. Like, we can't charge people's credit cards. We can't put people's information into our system. We don't have any backups. We have no other way to do it. We have there's nothing. We don't know what we're going to do." And we had kind of devised a plan for, if people saw When You See Me Live and they wanted to, book an appointment with us, that we kind of had a process, so we were ready to take care of them, right? We were expecting maybe like 20 or 30 phone calls. And so we were trying to be ready for that, because we're not even set up for 20 or 30 phone calls. Like, we have 2 lines, and we have like 4 people working here, and 2 of those people are with clients, if not a third. So it's like we don't have a lot of extra people, but we weren't really expecting much. And so I'm driving to the station, trying to think through, because obviously this is my first time on TV, and not only is it first time on TV, it has a live studio audience, so there's a bunch of people watching you, and right. It's live. So you got one shot at it. So if you screw up, you can't cut it out, right? So, all of this is going on, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. You have to figure out something. We have to figure out some way to get people's money so they can schedule appointments, and we had to figure out some way to schedule them, but we couldn't even access the scheduler, so we didn't even know what spots were available. So this was all happening anyway. So I go on TV. We didn't have it figured out. My manager at the time, we didn't have a lot of new consultations, so it was pretty easy to schedule new consultations. It was hard to schedule repeats. So he, on a whiteboard, we still have this whiteboard, it's an iconic whiteboard in this company. He, on this whiteboard, created this grid for scheduling, like a calendar that he just drew on this thing, and then that was going to be the grid to schedule. And then we happened to have, for a separate company, a credit card processor that was working, that we could process people's credit cards online. So I went on TV, and we got over 2,000 wow. phone calls. And it was insane here. So when you would pick up the phone, it would just, when you have somebody on like call waiting, or somebody calling in, it just beeps. It's like beep, so you have somebody else on the line. When you would answer the phone, it was just beep, 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 because it was all those people calling in.
Wow.
And we couldn't talk to anyone. We couldn't talk to anyone on the phone because it was just beeping because of all the people calling in. And so I'm flying back, because I know that there's all these phone calls happening. I'm flying back to get back to support the office staff to try to figure out what we can do. So what people were doing is then we seeing all these missed calls, and they were making outbound calls to these people on their cell phone, collecting the money on this online credit card processor, and then writing their names on the board, because our scheduler was still down. And we were having tons of people. Then we had an online scheduler too, tons of people scheduling online. So that was just double booking people like crazy, because people could schedule online still. So it was just like double booking people like crazy. We didn't know that till later, but man, we were just double booking people. And so we had this text message system where we could send an outbound text message. So we were getting, the problem is people were calling back and back and back and back and back, so they could talk to somebody. And so I sent a outbound text message to everybody's phone number that had called in, saying, "Hey, please stop calling. We've got your phone number. You've got, we're going to give you that special that we offered. We'll give you a call back. Just hang tight." And so then it took us a week to call everybody back. We scheduled, we scheduled between 200 and 300 consultations from that, between our Schaumburg, we had a Schaumburg office at the time and New Lenox office. And both were in dire need. Both were struggling. Both were in debt. Schaumburg was like negative $40,000 on credit cards. It was bad. And that one moment, I called friends. I flew in different friends to come here to do consultations, because we didn't have enough people. So I had some friends that that had done the program, and so I flew them in for a week, and they did consultations for a week. And it was exciting and crazy, and it was the first time where I felt like I had succeeded. That was the first time in my life that I felt like I actually made it. that all of this work leading up to that point in time had actually been worth it. It made all the pain of getting to that point, it made it worth it, and it made it like I'm finally going to be able to live the life I want, which is just a life of freedom. It's not a life of amazing sports cars and private jets. It's a life of, hey, I want to go and spend a week with my family and not worry about anything. I want to be able to go skiing for a week and know that my business is taken care of and that things are going to run and that my clients are taken care of. And when I look back, on my life, that will always be one of what I feel is one of my greatest achievements, is being ready for that. And the years of schooling that I had to go through to develop the VitaLife program, and the late nights doing homework and writing papers and taking tests and all of that stuff, it all was just like we were talking about. It was so painful. And then finally getting to that point of like just total frustration where it just made you want to just quit. When I look back at the years of doing business, because it's been like 13, 14 years now. When I look at the years of doing business and the turmoil and the struggle and selling companies and trying to get out of debt and pay bills and find that freedom that I'm looking for, that was the turning point for VitaLife. It's crazy. The VitaLife program is like an official sponsor of the Phoenix Suns.
Really?
Yeah. Who would have known that? There's nothing that I did. People in Arizona use my program, and I've developed a line of supplements so they buy the supplements and things from me, and I wrote the bioscans and they use our bioscans. But who would have thought? But it took that point in time. It took me getting to that point to be able to then get to that next level.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story, and I didn't even know that.
Yeah, then
we've been friends for this long, and that's I'm just kind of in awe with how that story progressed, and it's really comforting, and it's really inspiring for me as an entrepreneur, because obviously I'm a lot younger in my business career, so to speak, and I've been running Paragon for 7 years now, and that's something that definitely, I think there's this consensus that for people who maybe are not entrepreneurs or don't have entrepreneurs in their family, that it's this glamorous life, and you see people talk about how it's not glamorous and how there's issues and pain and dealing with people problems, and I think a lot of that goes unheard.
Mm-hmm.
I think it still is ignored a lot of times, and there's this consensus that, oh, they're just saying that in order to appear in a more favorable light. But it really is. It can be a struggle sometimes, and I started Paragon because I had a skill set. What I learned really quickly is that just because you have a skill set does not necessarily mean you have a viable business model.
It's true.
And luckily, just like you, when I started my company, I was living at home with my parents, and it was a hobby for many years. And why do I say it was a hobby? Because it's something I love to do, but it cost me more money than I was actually bringing in. And I had friends and relatives and just people who came across me, giving me my congratulations and telling me how great I was doing. But it was almost like I felt like I was almost living a lie, because I knew how great I wasn't doing.
Yeah.
And they would say, "Oh, you're running your own business. You're 18, you're 19, you're 20 years old, and you've got your own business, and you're talking to clients, and you're in boardrooms, and you're having these conversations at such a young age. It's a great thing." And I remember just feeling like a total fraud, because like, if only you knew, like, I am just learning this and figuring this out, and to this day I'm still learning and figuring it out. And it's just that is the life of the entrepreneur, and I think there's a point in all of our either careers or being an entrepreneur and starting your own company where the tides turn, and it's either in a good way or a bad way. The point you made, which really stood out to me, is that you recognize in yourself that although you were running a business currently, you did not have the skill set to run your future business with the skill set that you had today. So you looked within, and you had a really honest conversation with yourself and said, I need to go out and seek out the skill set that will get me to that next phase. And I think that's what's critical, because I Frankly, I think a lot of people get sucked in by the false illusion that because they're operating a company today and it may be profitable, that the journey for learning is completed.
Mm-hmm.
That there is no additional concepts and understanding that they need to have of this world in order to progress to the next level. I think at that point is where you truly start to decline.
Yeah.
And it's only recognized later when there's a monetary loss, but at that point it's too late. Yeah. You have to develop yourself. So I think that's, that's your superhero
that's
power to me. I mean, that is what you do that creates this level of success. It's the fact that you're looking within and you're being honest with yourself and recognizing that you don't have what it takes, but that you are going out and seeking that information.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't, personal development is, it's personal development, and then just the belief in yourself that you can do it. I like to do a lot of networking things, and sometimes I do have the opportunity to be able to network with somebody who may be a younger professional. Right now, it's sexy to be an entrepreneur. Like, that's like an attractive thing. You look at Instagram influencers, and they're entrepreneurs, and they're out on the beach and having that's fun. They're drinking the mimosas in the morning, and they're living it up, and so there's that idea of this glamorous lifestyle that's out there, but real hardcore entrepreneurship is not that. It is, I'm working in a basement that is half finished. I think that's for the entrepreneur, there's that hard balance, and for the true entrepreneur is never satisfied. That is what creates the ability to continue to grow. They're never satisfied. But there's also a sense where they have to, at one level, have contentment. Because if they're never satisfied, and if achievement is what they seek, and is every time they achieve something that makes them feel satisfied, that's fleeting. So, my advice for them is master the art of happiness. And I think that the entrepreneurs, especially the successful ones, they really struggle with that piece because they're chasing the next high, and as soon as they hit that high, they're chasing the next high, and they're chasing the next high. Finding the enjoyment in the process of hitting that goal is where life is lived. Now, life is not lived with the short achievements that we get here and there. I love the movie Marley and Me.
That's a good one.
It's a great movie, and that movie is all about the process. It's a story. The guy in the book, he achieves, the book turned into a movie. He achieves certain things in life, and the achievements are sweet, but you see the struggle in getting to those achievements, and you see the turmoil that the family has. But you look at that, and you look at that as a story about the stages of life. You got this young struggling writer who then has this break, and then has this family and loves his family and is able to get this nice house down the road, and the family has these struggles and turmoils and arguments and everything else, but they're making it. They're in the fight. They're on the playing field of life. And those who can find the joy in that playing field of life are the people who live extremely happy, fulfilled lives. So, I love achievement. I've run several marathons. I did my first triathlon last year. That's an achievement. But if I can't find joy in getting up in the morning and running, and if I can't find joy in getting to the pool and swimming, if I can't find joy in getting on my bike and biking, if I can't find joy in spending time with my girlfriend and my dogs and having an evening where we relax and watch TV, if I can't do those things as well, if I can't take some time off and go on vacation and be able to give something back to the world, if I can't find enjoyment in some of those things, then I'm not gonna live a fulfilled life. So, when I'm talking to young entrepreneurs, and there really are young entrepreneurs, there's people who are starting businesses and things like that just, they just don't have the mentality to do it. And there's nothing against them, but this is not cut out for everybody. Do you want to be alone a lot, work crazy hours, not make any money, for a 1 in 10 chance of making anything? If that excites you, if you're listening to that right now, if you're listening to that and then you're like, oh man, that is me, then you're an entrepreneur.
Sure.
If that's not you, then you're not. And don't try to be one, because you're gonna be stressed out of your mind. But if that idea is exciting to you, then do that. So when I'm talking to an entrepreneur, I'm talking to the entrepreneur about how do I now have fulfillment in life, because most entrepreneurs don't.
Wow. And I think that's a big part of it too, is just understanding what it takes to be successful, and then having a knowledge transfer and sharing that information with those that may not be aware of that. And I want to leave the viewers with this last little piece, which totally ties into that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there's this idea of the democratization of knowledge. With the current age of technology, it's been easier to spread information and connect in more meaningful ways, but it's got to be done with the intentionality of bettering the other person, because at the end of the day, one of my favorite quotes, a rising tide lifts all boats. So we're all in this together, and the only way we'll succeed is by recognizing that we all are in this together and continuing this process with each other as a collective whole, rather than siloed off individuals. And that's what will eventually lead to our success. So Davis, thanks for coming on today, man. This was a really awe-inspiring conversation, and I learned a lot of things that I didn't even know about you. So now you see why I thought you were the superhero that needed to have your identity exposed to the world. So thanks for coming in, and we'll have to get you on for round number 2, man.
Love it. Anytime.
Awesome. Thanks.
Right.